वेलकम फ्रेंड्स। मैं आज के वेबिनार में आप सबका स्वागत करता हूं। मेरा नाम सीए आदित्य जैन है और मैं द सीए फॉर्म का वाइस प्रेसिडेंट हूं। It's my honor today to welcome my friend Ashish Kilaji, and today's topic is how to compound wealth using equity market in the long run. आशीष किला जी हमारे बहुत पुराने जानकार हैं और अपने अपनी फील्ड पे और अपने अपने एरिया में उनका बहुत बहुत अच्छा कमांड है। तो आज का जो सेमिनार है हम लोगों ने आशीष किला जी के लिए रखा है और आशीष किला जी को मैं अब हैंड ओवर करता हूं ताकि वो अपना वेबिनार स्टार्ट कर सकें, क्योंकि हमारे ऑलरेडी 100 से ऊपर पार्टिसिपेंट पहुंच चुके हैं। आशीष किला जी, वेलकम टू आवर वेबिनार। I'm just handing over to you.
Yeah, so had the good, thank you once again, the CA Forum for hosting us for this seminar. And thank you Manoj Patavri ji for hosting us. It's a great honor to be here, just sharing our experiences in terms of how to compound wealth using equity markets. I've had the good fortune of presenting at various platforms and institutions. And we'll be sharing our experiences from all these platforms. Just to give acknowledgements to my father, Mr. Ari Kila, who's been the guiding light of the group, my entire family and the entire team at Perfect Research, which is helping us deliver this knowledge. Some acknowledgements to our role models. We have been lucky to be in touch with them and get some learnings from them. And a lot of times we tell it's good to have sounding boards in life, because sometimes what's written in books needs also be validated with your friends, with your network, with your colleagues, with your mentors. This helps us stay on track and learn from the experiences of others. So every year we have been doing an annual investing study. Basically, whatever challenges we are facing in that particular year, we have been trying to manage those challenges and share about those feedback every year. So we did a presentation on role of management in 2013. We discussed about a process of investing, all the 4 C's, which is basically cloning. How do you select stocks? Checklist. How do you then further shortlist them, or which businesses are great? Capital allocation. How do you put money behind them? How much money to put? And check out, meaning when do you sell those businesses? Standard valuation matrix. Herein we discuss about how do you value great companies. So example, you have companies like Titan and Nestle, which have always been expensive and still delivered returns. But at the same time, you have companies like Eicher and Maruti, which have crashed like 50%, which were also great companies. So why some of them don't do well and why some of them keep performing. Capacity to suffer. Now this is a concept wherein you have companies which are putting a lot of efforts, a lot of capex to get future profitability. So these guys then don't show a lot of profit in the initial years. A good example could be Nespresso of Nestle, which took 10 years to make money and now is a big money churner for them. So how do you look at such companies? So sidecar investing is basically you have companies like Mothers and Sumi, or companies which have been serial acquirers, and they keep acquiring companies and keep doing well. At the same time, you have certain companies which did a lot of mergers like AOL and Time Warner and failed miserably. So what differentiates companies which continue to do well as serial acquirers versus companies which do acquisition and fail? This study touches upon that. Most of these studies keep coming on a web, on a blog, and we also share YouTube videos on these studies. Then we did a study on ranking of business models. Basically, which business models are great, which ones do you have to buy a lot, how much to allocate, and for how long do you hold on to great business models. Now, because not all businesses are equal. Certain businesses are GDP dependent, certain businesses are commodity businesses, certain businesses can be disrupted easily. So this is a theme we touch here. Coming to today's roadmap, we'll be starting from the basics. Why is investing essential? And how do you start up with that? So why is investing essential? So Charlie Munger is the partner of Warren Buffett. a very rich investor, and these are some learnings which Charlie Munger mentions. He says, spend less than you make, always be saving something, put it in a tax deferred account. This will begin to amount something. Similarly, getting rich is a function of being what you have and spending less than what you make, and then give it time. Basic folksy wisdom, common sense, which basically you're saying spend less than what you earn. So as we grow in life, we start generating surplus money over and above our expenses. This surplus money needs to be invested to grow further for future requirements. Now, this is a chart taken from Safal Nimishek's website. If you Safal Nimishek does a lot of job in terms of giving basic knowledge also about how to do investing. It's a good website to follow. Just a small quiz. Can you guys imagine the wealth created by Wipro? How much do you think would be the worth of 10,000 rupees invested in 1980? If somebody of you who know the answer, please don't mention it. Others can put some answers in the chat. How much do you think will be the worth of 10,000 rupees invested in Wipro in 1980? So the purpose of this exercise is the numbers which we are getting, a few crore rupees, 30, 40 lakhs. Just look at the number, it is astounding. So this case was covered in Economic Times. Mohammad Anwar Ahmed invested 10,000 in 1980, and that stake is worth 500 crores in 2016. Now the purpose of this example exercise is our mind is not geared towards compounding or exponential numbers. So something when we keep for long run, they really grow up and add up a lot. So coming to this example, this is the way equity compounds wealth over long run. And I'll be discussing more on these compounding examples going forward. This is a quiz which Monish Pabrai asked his class. In 1626, Dutch bought Manhattan Island from native Indians for $24. This is the entire Manhattan Island. Who do you think got a better deal? The native Indians or the Dutch? Again, those who have done this quiz, please don't answer. For the rest, please let me know you think Dutch were beneficial or the native Indians. Monish Pabrai is trying to tell in his example is that while $24 might look quite less to you, but basically when you compound it over 300 years, 1626 to bring it current times, then even on 7%, when you compound it over 300 years from 1626 to bring it to current date, even a 7% return exceeds trillions of dollars. Now that calculation is being mentioned by him here. So when he mentions that the entire wealth of US is as a fraction of Manhattan is not as high, one can clearly see that if the Indians were able to invest already at 7% only, then they would have benefited immensely from it. So that is the power of compounding, that $24 versus the entire island of Manhattan, if invested at 7%, would have generated immense wealth. Coming on to the next type of assets. So these are the types of assets which are available for a common investor to invest. Let's pick up one by one. First, why not invest all your money in gold? So Warren Buffett says he doesn't invest in gold. And here are the reasons. He says you could take all the gold that's been ever mined and you could fill a cube 67 feet in each direction. It would be worth around 7 trillion. And for what that's worth, at current gold prices, you could buy all the farmland, you could buy 7 Exxon Mobils and have $1 trillion walking around money. So he says this is the alternative to all the gold in the world. Which one would you find more attractive? And this is why a lot of value investors typically don't invest in gold, because the alternative is just so attractive. Gold as an asset doesn't earn return. It is basically a buyer putting a price versus a seller selling it at a price. Now, these are some numbers on the returns potential which has been shown. Gold over the last 30 years, how it has compounded wealth versus similarly equity markets over the last 30 years. So if you see, in the last 30 years, equity markets has handsomely beaten gold. Now, even if you see the last 3 months, where gold has spiked a lot and equity markets have really fallen. Equity is still outbeating gold. Now, you might see the difference is only 4%. But when you see in terms of the 4% difference also, the 4% difference compounds a lot. So if you see the numbers below, the 4% difference also adds up a lot. The difference could be for 4% over 30 years, could be as high as around 30 lakhs or 143%. Second asset class is why not invest all your money in property. First, the jump in absolute amount is not as attractive it seems. A lot of people keep saying, for example, I bought a property for 10 lakhs in 1990 and now in 2020 it's worth 2 crore rupees. Now sounds like a lot, but if you just run the maths and the numbers, it is not a very high number. So if you just see the numbers here, it is an IRR of 10.5% over a period of 30 years. Just because the absolute number looks so high, one might think of it as a very attractive option. Return of an asset is determined by underlying returns. Now, what is the underlying return of a property? Rental income from residential property is quite low, say 2 to 3%. So the underlying return from a property as a rental income is typically not very high. Let's look at it another way. Suppose you were to buy a property today for 2 crores and assume that I'll make a return of 15, 20, 25%. This is the kind of price that the property needs to sell after 30 years. So sometimes when you look at property prices, they have grown from a bottom a lot. But to imagine that they will grow at 15% for 30 years and be selling at 130, 500 or 1,000 crores, that could be a really big challenge. This is a study done by RBI, which already shows that if you see the house price to income ratio, already the property prices are around 60 times an average Indian's monthly income. So coming back to the previous slide which you mentioned, assuming here that the property prices will grow at 15-20% for the long run, when already they're not very affordable, is a big ask, is a big task also, and it seems unlikely. What are the other risks of real estate? While property may not be as volatile because the prices do not fluctuate on a daily, weekly basis like a ticker, there is a lot of unique risk. For example, can you invest in multiple properties across cities? Otherwise, your real estate investment is risky, irrespective of the overall growth in the market. Legal risk, a lot of stories, tenant not vacating, land mafia. There was this very comedy movie called Khosla Ka Ghosla, which was entirely based on the land mafia acquiring the property of Anupam Kher and his family and how they go about the various shenanigans to vacate the property. So while you might be sitting pretty in your home thinking that your property is making tons of money for you, but as the movie shows, these kind of things can happen. Risk of real estate, minimum ticket size. Now, suppose you want to do an SIP. That is quite tough to do an SIP. Say I want to buy a property in Nariman Point or in Bombay or some place. That I will tell the seller that I'll pay you in 1,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees a month or 10,000 rupees a month. Typically, you have to fork out a big chunk of money to start with. Then is the illiquidity risk, meeting buyers and sellers. So today, when markets are down, somebody wants immediate cash and somebody goes for his property worth, say, suppose 5 crores. He might get a quotation which is 30% down from the current market price. So a lot of times when you are actually requiring money, property may not be immediately sellable. The prices which we saw in 2007 Even 1/3 of those prices are not available. And you have such horror stories a lot of times with a lot of people. Now, this is a trend for work from home. Post-corona, TCS has mentioned that 75% of the 4.5 lakh employees it has will continue to work permanently from home. That's a huge number. Think 75% of 4.5 employees. And this is just TCS. You will see such trends playing out across other IT companies and other companies which are now getting used to work from home. Now just imagine, no more buying fancy offices at the same speed which was happening earlier. Maybe have smaller offices. When you have smaller commercial demand, people staying nearby, residential demand also suffers. A TCS employee can be sitting from Baroda and continue handling clients rather than moving to Bombay, Delhi or Bangalore. So this will impact commercial office demand and consequently metro residential demand as well. So why not invest all your money in FD? FD is the asset class which makes a new high every day because it keeps accumulating interest. But like everybody knows, FD has low post-tax returns, low returns post-adjusting for inflation. There is a decrease in real purchasing power. So FD is not a great option if one is looking to compound money or wealth over the long run. FDs are a good option to keep for liquidity. So today's topic is, since compounding wealth, we are not going on other options in terms of how to manage liquidity or how to keep some money in other fixed income options. We are only focusing on compounding wealth using equities. So why is equity investing wonderful? The potential to multiply the most scarce resource, which is time. There's a wonderful book by Tim Ferriss called The 4-Hour Work Week, where he explains how in 4 hours you can run your organization. His famous quote is, "Be neither the boss nor the employee, but the owner. To own the trains and have someone else ensure they run on time." About Tim Ferriss, he's a very famous entrepreneur. He's been covered by Fortune, a lot of magazines. He's a very famous podcast and a lot of books to his credit. I would advise people to at least start reading 4-Hour Work Week when they have time. Here's another analogy. Think in terms of entrepreneurship help you scaling time. If I'm working in a job, but I have dreams of entrepreneurship, it is not necessary that I need to leave the job and then move to entrepreneurship. Equity investing allows you to own great businesses wherein you can be a sleeping partner. You have put money there. Every few months, you look at conference calls or you look at updates from the CEO. And once you think the CEO is not performing well or not giving proper answer, one can always think about moving on to the next business. You can partner with wonderful businesses here. So this is a great way of partnership, especially when you have limited time. Look at the richest people in the world. A lot of them are entrepreneurs. I always give an example that even if you are a top professional, you can maybe charge by the hour, but you have limited hours to work in a day. A Mukesh Ambani, for example, can hire thousands and lakhs of professionals, and his time, instead of having 24 hours, he can work for thousands and thousands of hours every day using his team. And that is why he multiplies wealth faster and better. Comparing with own businesses, a lot of you are business people also. Just think in terms of the emotional attachment. When you talk to somebody that you are running a business, so much emotional attachment. Sometimes you're running a textile business which is not doing well, or an IT distribution business which Amazon has disrupted, but you still get attached to it and you still stick on to it, thinking that I will not leave the business. This is something like which my people started in the initial times. How can I leave this business? So this is something which then affects you, because sometimes when the business is not doing well, it is time to exit. It is time to move on. It is not time to just stick on to the same business. Similarly, diversification. How many of us can manage multiple industries? We have limited time, limited bandwidth, and so we can manage only limited businesses. But using equity, you can own a stake in banks, insurance companies, jewelry companies, tech companies. You can diversify your risk profile. You can diversify your earning stream. Today, coronavirus problem, grocery businesses are doing well. For example, take a DMart. DMart is continuing to do well. Companies like Reliance, which are in telecom, are doing well. Bharti is doing well. No, but as a businessman, I don't have ownership or exposure to these businesses. But in equity, I can. Regulatory requirements. Today, I think running a bank is great, but I can't run a bank because there's a lot of capital which is required, 100 crore plus, then is licensing from RBI and other places. Then succession planning. My children may not be interested in running the business. And that is how you see a lot of Indian family businesses, second generation, third generation, start splitting. In equity bank, like an HDFC bank, and Aditya Puri is going, he'll be taken over by a capable CEO going forward. This problem will not emerge. Ability to close change business, as I mentioned earlier, with the emotional attachment, very difficult to let go of people, very difficult to fire people, very difficult to switch on. Scalability. Most businesses remain as mom and pop businesses and not able to scale up really well, as they're not able to transfer management to professional. But look at companies like Nestle. You had a crisis in India. They changed the CEO, brought the CEO from outside India, Suresh Narayanan, and he's running the organization. Look at other institutions. These institutions live beyond the founder, McDonald's or Nestle or other places. And management keeps changing and the business keeps scaling up. Risk of disruption, as I mentioned, you were in an IT distribution businesses that got disrupted. You were in a film business selling camera films like Kodak. But if you don't have any other business, you can't switch and you're gone. But if you're in equity, you can always switch businesses from one business to another business. So then why not invest all your money in stocks only, long-term money? Because equity can be quite volatile in the short run. Case in point, 2008, indices fell 50% or more and stocks fell 80% or more. So for emergency purposes, this kind of liquidity buffer is not helpful. One should only invest the surplus money, which one doesn't need for close to 5-10 years. Any short-term money should not go into equity or equity-related markets, mutual funds, or other places. So what is the basic philosophy for market volatility? This is an example of a company, Monster Beverage, which compounded a lot of wealth. Just see in terms of the history of drops which it has had. Even a Kotak Bank in India in 2008 fell close to 60-70% in the crisis and had recovered multiple times once the crisis went over. So please understand, when you think in terms of property, you have a knowledgeable buyer and you have a knowledgeable seller. It is a one-to-one transaction. So the prices don't fluctuate a lot. Equity markets is an auction-driven market. When you have an auction-driven market, prices will tend to fluctuate a lot because you have herd mentality both on the buyer side and the seller side. You have greed and panic. You have a faceless buyer, you have a faceless seller. And that is why you will see much more volatility in the short run in markets versus properties. But in the long run, the stock price follows the business performance. Volatility is an inherent nature of business. So for example, 2008 crisis happened. As business people, did we close our businesses because 2008 happened? No, we continued our businesses. But what do we do in equities? We say, let me exit, let me come out because this recession has come. I don't know what will happen. Do we keep checking the business valuation for a business? But in equities, we keep doing this. We keep selling some part of the equity. We keep selling, we keep churning. So we need to think like owners of businesses. Again, structural change versus systematic risk. Certain businesses are structurally going under pain. For example, a company like ENIL, which is into radio business, may structurally be going into a lot of pain because of all these OTT apps coming in terms of having now music on the go, video on the go. In a car, nobody now listens to a radio. They might prefer to listen to their own Gaana app or Savan app or watch a Jio video. So certain businesses are going through disruption. One can exit, but otherwise, For example, in HDFC Bank, a bank has existed for centuries, and you always require an intermediary to be in between. So even though crisis may bring prices down, the stronger banks will keep surviving and will keep going ahead. So finally, volatility is not loss of capital. Volatility gives you notional losses. Loss occurs when you sell the stock. So what is the requirement for direct investing? Do direct investing if you have the following things with you. Time. A few hours a week to keep track of news items regarding your company, the sector. A lot of people say, I don't have a time to do direct investing. Now, if you have to do equity investing, for example, even companies like Nestle, they went through a 50% crash when the Maggi crisis happened. So at least you need to keep reading some news items, maybe once a week, maybe few times a month. Even if you're not able to do that, then you don't have time at all to even read the news of your businesses, and you've just bought on somebody's recommendation, you have no idea, then it is a disaster. You are putting your hard-earned money and you don't require too much time. Just be updated. For example, I mentioned about ENIL. So if you think the business is getting disrupted, it requires common sense. Are we listening to radio nowadays? Maybe less. Maybe it's time for me to move on. If you are owning newspaper businesses, for example, Hindustan Media Ventures Limited or HT Media, one might say nowadays, maybe the old generation reads newspaper, but the new generation is on apps. The new generation is consuming through other media. Maybe it's time to move on. At least some time you have to give. And that is not a lot. It doesn't require a lot of time, but you need to keep track. Interest. A lot of people don't enjoy reading news or don't enjoy reading new businesses. For example, Reliance Facebook tie-up has happened. One needs to think, would it be a start of an ecosystem like you have Tencent with WeChat outside in China? Something could that similarly happen in India maybe. Facebook and Reliance combined will do something great. Now, if you don't enjoy thinking on these things, maybe direct investing is not meant for you. When I say direct investing, means directly buying stocks. Temperament. For example, coronavirus has hit. A lot of good businesses are down 50%, 60%. And if you're losing sleep over the night, then we should not be investing in equity markets directly. Unless we have the stomach to see the fall. People like Charlie Munger and Buffett have clearly mentioned that they have seen their net worth erode 50% at least multiple times in their lifetime. And if we can't stomach it, we have no business to be in stock market. Even Ramdev ji, in his journey of how he made 1,000 crores, has mentioned that he is mostly fully invested, and how at the time of crisis, so many times he has lost a big part of his net worth, but he stuck to the plan and has made back his money again. And the fourth thing is patience. The big money is made in buying and holding great businesses. But don't think that I bought a business today and it is not going up. Why is the business not growing up? Getting your point? If you think the business is not growing, the stock doesn't know that you own it. It will take time. The business will take time. The returns will take time. So Paul Samuelson always says, investing should be like watching paint dry. If you want excitement, go to Las Vegas. Don't come here. Now, having scared you enough of why not to invest in direct equity. See, I've been doing equity for now close to decades. This is something which is interesting for us from the very beginning and kept discussing things. So whenever I keep discussing with family members and other people and a lot of relatives and friends who keep burning their hands in equity, I keep telling them, if you don't have these 4 requirements, don't do direct investing. There are other ways to make money in equity markets which are far simpler, far easier than this. This is quite exciting. But if you have these conditions, then only do direct investing. Otherwise, you will be taken for a ride. So what are the other options for equity investing which require lesser time, which are more passive, which are more safer? For example, index investing. Now, what is an index? I'm just covering it briefly. So index basically is a composite of stocks We have two exchanges in India, NSE and BSE. Nifty 50 is the index on NSE and Sensex is the Nifty, index on BSE. So look at the returns of the index since inception. The BSE index, the Sensex has grown from the very starting, from the price of 100 to 31,743, giving an absolute return of 317x in 41 years of 15% CAGR. And this is without including the dividends. So how does one invest in the index? There are two ways to invest in an index. Index funds. An index fund is like a normal fund which we have, mutual fund, wherein the fund manager, instead of selecting stocks, he will try to replicate the basket of stocks which constitute the index. So if we say a Nifty fund, it will try to replicate the stocks in the Nifty so that your performance in the fund is similar to the index. So there is no stock selection. The tracking error is basically the difference which we have from the index performance. So in an index fund, the basically fund mirrors the performance of the index. The second option is ETF. ETF is an exchange traded fund. Exchange traded fund is listed on the index. So it's called like Nifty Bees is an exchange traded fund. So the difference between the two funds, I'll explain more going forward, but just bear with me till now. An index fund is like a normal fund wherein you can buy in and sell units from a mutual fund. And ETF is like a stock which is traded on the index. Again, the ETF value is mirroring the index value. So these are a few differences between index funds and ETF. An SIP, what is an SIP? A systematic investment plan. So if you see a lot of good investors, they keep investing small amounts every month from their income, salary or business income, so that over a period of time you compound wealth. Now SIP can be done in index mutual funds. ETF is not easy to do it. Purchase, sale, index funds you can do through mutual funds. Exchange traded funds you can buy in open market. Transaction cost, one is expense ratio only and one is demat account and charges. Some of the terms may not be clear to everybody. So one should only mainly focus that here there are two options between index funds and ETFs. Just keep with me that index funds and ETFs are both options to mirror the index. Second, what is useful for us, that SIP can be done in index funds and ETFs it is not possible. And if you don't want to do an SIP, it is far easier to buy lump sum in the market and ETF. I think these two things should be more useful for you rather than the other things here. One small difference again, dividends in index funds keep getting reinvested. So that helps compounding. Dividends in ETF don't get reinvested automatically, they come to your bank account. So when we discuss index investing and I showed the return potential of the index over the long run, that return has come because index is basically what? A barometer of the Indian economy. What is index? It is constituting HDFC Bank, it is constituting the top mutual fund, it's constituting the top banks, the top companies like Reliance, the top jewelry companies like Titan, Nestle. So these companies constitute the index. So when these companies make money, when these companies do well in the economy, their prices go up and hence the index goes up. So basically while investing in the index, you are taking a call that the top companies in India will keep performing well. And since the top companies keep performing well, they will keep doing well and generate wealth for us. Now, what are the benefits of index investing? Charges. If you look at charges which an active mutual fund charges, it's around 1.5 to 2%. Whereas both index funds and ETFs are extremely cheap vis-a-vis an active mutual fund. Some issues with index funds, survivorship bias. The issue in index investing is companies are coming in the index because of market capitalization. List of good ETFs and mutual funds is given on NSE. So coming to this survivorship bias, so think of an example. In 2007 rally, a lot of real estate companies, infra companies had become a part of the index. Now these companies became a part of the index because their market capitalization went up. Because their market capitalization went up, they became the part of the index. And as we are buying index, we bought those stocks. Now, when these companies went out of fancy, nowadays you don't see those big real estate companies. You lost wealth. Second issue is it doesn't take into factor the other points to judge a company: quality of management, sustainability of business model, earning potential, growth. These are also factors which are essential for finding a quality stock. Sensex or a Nifty is just saying, I will take the highest market capitalization companies and I will not apply my mind that is it a good quality management or is it a bad quality management. For example, somebody might say that I find HDFC Bank management better than some other bank or some other corporate house. But an index will weigh the company in the index as per the market capitalization. So let me give you an example on this. 18 out of 50 stocks in Nifty 50 were able to give a return about a cost of capital. Other funds were not even able to go above the cost of capital over the past 10 years. And this is an example of what I was trying to tell you. In 2008, look at the market cap of DLF, and in the same November 2008, in the same market cap and 25% change, you could buy all the real estate companies in the country listed there. So that was the kind of damage which happened in the index when companies like Reliance Power, DLF came in the fancy 2006-07. Now, despite all these shortcomings in terms of index, not selecting or not assigning weightage, index, as we showed earlier, has still given a good return of close to 14 to 16% over the long run. The other shortcoming of the index is weightage. Today, the index is highly weighted with banks and IT companies. Earlier, it was weighted with real estate companies. So every 5-10 years, some sector catches fancy and becomes the heavyweight in the index. The index may not be representative of the entire economy, and it may be driven by a certain few sectors doing well or doing bad. So these are the few shortcomings of index investing. But nevertheless, even after coming these shortcomings, just think in terms of an investor. He just needs to invest money in the index over a period of long run, 5-10 years, preferably longer, and the index will automatically keep selecting good companies on market capitalization. Now the companies which fail, they will go out of the index. So when Reliance Power doesn't do well, it goes out of the index. So you don't lose all the money down to zero. They shouldn't have bought the company in the first instance, but even if they bought, they exit it. Why? Because only the good performing companies keep growing in the index in market capitalization. So basically you're saying index will always keep owning the top 50 companies or the top 30 companies in the country. And if these companies keep doing well, automatically the companies which don't do well will keep going out. So you are basically transferring the process of selecting the top 50 companies to an automatic process called the index. And that is why, because it takes out the behavioral biases wherein people panic, it takes out the timing issues. Over the long run, index is able to make good returns. Now, if you compare it with mutual funds also in India have a good track record of creating wealth, even better than the index. Now, this is in contrast to the developed economies outside, wherein mutual funds have not been able to generate a lot of wealth and even not beat the index. So when we always discuss these things with fellow investors, what comes out is that the Indian economy is quite emerging. There's a lot of governance issues. There's a lot of quality premium, which the fund manager can bring from his experience in selecting companies and giving more weightage. In an index, in an emerging economy, you need to also weigh the quality of management and other things. So that is why when the fund manager brings a few points extra of differentiation and shortlist among these companies, he is able to get a few percentage points extra return over the index. Now, as the economy matures, as the economy grows, this edge of the mutual fund manager or the alpha of the mutual fund manager will keep dipping. And then, like developed economies, a lot of mutual fund managers may not be able to outperform the index. But currently, the given state of mind, at least for the good coming time, we still have a lot of inefficiencies in the market, and we can stick to good mutual funds. Now, does 15 to 17% sound too low as return expectations? Sometimes when you talk to business people, some of them say we are earning 20% return in our business, 25% return. Now one needs to think, are you able to deploy all your money in earning 25% return? Some of them are able to deploy a limited amount of money. Some of them are not able to grow the business. And some of them are doing risky activities which one might lose. If you get a consistent 15-17% return also, this is again a chart from Safal Niveshak, you can still make a good 100x in 25 to 30 years if you see this chart. So basically what this chart is trying to say, walk your way to financial freedom. Why run for higher IRR and lose your sleep? When we keep running for the next business opportunity sometimes, which promises a high IRR, or keep lending to sometimes friends and family or real estate brokers at 30% IRR, that money may not come back also. A lot of people who have lent to real estate brokers over the past few years, thinking of earning good 20-25% return as interest, have not got the money back also. So one needs to think sometimes it's far better to have consistent compounding versus chasing high IRRs, which could result in failure later on. So what is the difference when you go in mutual fund? There are two options available, a direct plan and a regular plan. Now, a lot of people, if you see business people, are choosing regular plan, or they don't even know what's a regular direct plan. In a regular plan, you're basically buying through a broker or advisor, who in between is taking a commission of 0.25 to 1%, which might seem quite low to you, but think of it as an annuity stream which you're giving to the broker every year. What? For recommending a mutual fund plan. This is a small table which shows the return potential difference when you go for a direct plan and regular plan. Keep in mind a small amount of 10,000 SIP invested with a 1% difference because of direct plan and regular plan compounds a difference of 26% over the long run, or 15 lakh rupees. Then there's an option in mutual funds of growth and dividend plan. So in the growth plan, the profits are reinvested into the mutual fund. So for long-term compounding, we should always choose growth plan, because if dividends keep coming to us, then it is our responsibility to keep investing them back. See, our entire premise today or discussion today is using equity for long-term compounding. People who need fixed income, I'm not covering today, but they should be investing in other places like a bank FD or a government security or other such bonds for regular income, because that is consistent. When you're looking for long-term wealth compounding, this is the surplus money which you have taken out after taking out your fixed expenses, after taking out your requirements, and this is truly surplus for say 10 years. So then you want maximum compounding there. So you need to have in your portfolio certain part which is liquidity, current liquidity, certain part which is fixed income, and certain part which you are playing for the long run wealth compounding, either through your business, and if you don't have a business or you can't invest more in the business, then invest in equity. So that way, as a balance, you also have liquidity with you, you also have fixed income through debt schemes, and at the same time, you have long-term compounding through growth plans. So what is an SIP? SIP, which we mentioned earlier, SIP is an investment vehicle offered by mutual funds to investors. This allows them to invest small amounts periodically instead of lump sum. So think of it as a small allocation, say 5,000, 10,000 every month, which you are doing for the long run so that your money can grow, rather than putting a lump sum amount, say 5 lakh, 10 lakh at the first go. These are some return calculations for SIP. If you see the second table and assume a 15% return on a SIP of 5,000 rupees, Just look at the amount of compounding which can happen in terms of 10 years, 30 years. So typically, as I mentioned examples earlier also, when even if we keep investing small amounts and look at the difference between 12% return and 15% return. If you bear with me here, just a second, look at here 30 years at monthly SIP 10,000 for 12% and 15%. With a similar amount, the return has jumped almost double with 3% extra return. This is the power of compounding. So even if you can get a few percentage points higher by investing in the index or the mutual funds, it adds up a lot over the long run because you are every year compounding on the higher interest rate. Which mutual fund to invest in? Now, indexing, we don't need to apply any brains. Indexing, we just need to do an SIP, buy an index fund, do an SIP there. ETFs SIP is not possible, so we should prefer to do an index fund SIP, and we can start with a small amount, put money which is surplus for 10 years, and let the money compound. Now, but in terms of mutual funds, there is an additional leg of homework which is required. But between equity investing, wherein the homework is regular, homework is more intense, homework is much more, here homework is more one time, and then very minimal homework. So maybe a few hours a quarter, a few hours in 3 months or 6 months is good enough. So you're drastically bringing down your time which you require to compound wealth. When starting from equity, which requires regular time, direct equity investing, then you come to mutual funds which require little lesser time, much lesser time, and then to indexing which doesn't require much time at all. So this is in middle of the category where you're saying which mutual fund to invest in. There are sector funds, there are multi-cap funds, there are micro-cap funds, small-cap funds, mid-cap funds, funds from different houses. So I will give you some insights which we practice and invest our family members or tell people who are not investing directly in markets or who want to put some time beyond index investing. People who have little time or who don't want to spend too much time should then stick to index investing. People who can give little more time to do some homework or to track something can do mutual fund investing. And people who have a lot of time, interest, and the conditions I mentioned should do direct equity investing. So what due diligence should you do to invest in mutual funds? Is the scheme truly diversified? Now, a lot of times I see people saying that I have bought mutual funds, but the scheme is too much heavy on a particular sector or a group of sectors. Then that is not giving you diversified return. A lot of times nowadays you have mutual funds which also diversify country exposure. So I will give you examples of funds like Parag Parikh Financial Advisory or SBI Focus Equity, which also invest in US markets, in tech companies, to give you the exposure there and not just limit on Indian markets. A lot of times I keep hearing people saying that the growth is now coming in the top 5 stocks, FANG stocks, and we are not participating at all in these kind of stocks. And Facebook and these kind of businesses will take away the next leg of growth. So some funds also are able to invest outside and give you the exposure of such quality stocks in your portfolio. Then does the investment mandate capture the latest fad? So 2007, a lot of infra funds came out. Nowadays, pharma funds are coming out. Please stay clear of such investment fads which come out every 5 years. Infra fund, real estate fund, pharma fund, tech fund. We are not here to say today, even if FMCG fund, a business might do well, valuations might go crazy. Now, when you tell a fund manager that you have to invest in a banking fund, even if he sees valuation going too high, his hands are tied. He can't switch to a cheaper sector. He has to keep holding the sector. Then as an investor, we need to tell him, or we need to keep in mind that I am exiting now from the banking sector, I am getting into the banking sector. That is not advisable at all. So when you do in sector funds, this is a big risk which you face. Turnover ratio. Look at the turnover ratio of a few funds I mentioned. A lot of sometimes funds which claim to be large cap, mid cap, small cap, and long term have very high turnover ratios. Now, this data is available easily from Value Research Online or some other Google websites. If you look at the turnover and it's too high, you don't want to invest in some funds which is like flipping stocks like a broker does with his client holdings. You're looking for a fund manager who's investing for the long run. So we stay clear of funds which have very high turnover ratios. A lot of funds flip IPOs also. They'll put money in IPO application and then sell on listing, flipping gains. These are not the kind of funds which will create long-term wealth. One should stay clear of such funds. What other factors to look at? Skin in the game. A fund manager is buying some PSU stock or some other stocks or some other businesses. How much skin in the game does he have? Nassim Taleb has a book also on this topic. Does he have your best interest with you? Now, again, I'll give you some examples here. For example, wherein the sponsor company and the employees have the entire wealth in their own scheme. If their interest is not aligned, how do you make money with them? You are giving your hard-earned money to them. At least if they don't trust their own picks, if they don't trust their own stock picks in the mutual fund, then we have no business to be there in that mutual fund. Investor communication. Is the mutual fund reaching out to investors through periodic interaction, through con calls, through a lot of good funds are doing a lot of efforts. Some of them keep doing AGMs, some of them keep doing online interactions, con calls, keep writing letters to investors, keep explaining, keep holding their hands, keep explaining them how things are going on. So these are the suggestions of a few funds which we find interesting. Parag Parikh Financial Advisory Long Term Equity, Motilal Oswal Multicap 35, SBI Focus Equity. Now these are not, I am saying just go ahead and buy these funds. The criteria which I mentioned earlier, some of these funds satisfy a lot of those criteria. I will suggest all of you to do that some homework at your end. When you do that homework at your end, one can then think in terms of what mutual funds one is finding interesting. So for example, today you should go back when you have time, look at the funds which you have in your portfolio. Now, if you have a lot of funds, say more than 5-10 funds, it doesn't make sense because the fund itself is holding 50 stocks. So or 30 stocks. So if you buy 20 funds or 30 funds, you're diluting the return potential. You don't need to buy more than a few good funds. A few good funds would give you all the diversification you need. Secondly, look at the criteria which I suggested. Can I look at my fund? Don't look in terms of return potential. The error which most of the people do is look at the last 1 year, 3 years. Also look at the portfolio. Do you see good companies in the portfolio? Do you see an HDFC Bank? Do you see a Titan? Do you see an Infosys? Do you see the top companies or great companies in the portfolio? So return is an outcome. And long-term return, if you have to look at return over a period of 5 years, 10 years. Those returns matter. For example, here SBI Focus Equity return since launch is in double digits. Now, if over a period of 15 years, somebody has made 15% plus return, that cannot be fluke. So wherever you want to see returns higher than 5-10 years, that could be a good metrics to look at. Recently launched funds, what fund managers or mutual funds do a lot of times is they have hundreds of schemes. So they will try to pitch you the scheme which currently is doing well. Every few years, they will change schemes and keep recommending you or keep churning the portfolio. One should always not avoid looking at 1 year, 3 year, even 5 year return. Say better is 7-10 years return metrics. That is the kind of thing that over a period of long term. See, a business cycle in India could be as large as 7 to 10 years. If over a business cycle, have you made consistent returns? Now, these returns are after the expenses which I mentioned earlier. So these funds are able to beat the index handsomely over a period of long time. And despite their higher charges, are still giving return. So if I summarize till what I've discussed till here, think in terms of compounding equation. What money today you're putting is a present value. Instead of chasing high IRR, look at the compounding period. So there's a famous scene in the movie Badrinath Ki Dulhaniya, wherein the hero comes and tells to the heroine that I have learned the compounding equation P into R into T. But that's actually a simple interest equation. It's not a compounding equation. And the compounding equation has exponential power. So the exponential power is in the number of period. The exponential power is not in the rate of interest. So as investors, we should be looking for instruments where we can put our wealth for the really long run without doing much homework, and we have people who are managing our wealth properly, and that would give us long-term compounding. So instead of focusing the R, find the next real estate agent or broker or builder and give him money for 26% and that money doesn't come back. Instead of doing those practices, think in terms of maximizing the N. Because even if you take money back successfully from 10 builders, even if one builder goes wrong, or even if one such close circle money which you are given to a close family circle of friend, you will lose the relationship first. You may not get the money back, and that entire capital which is gone will dent the overall return, which one should look at. So keep this in mind. A compounding machine like an index or mutual fund truly maximizes the N. So Albert Einstein always says that compounding is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. Again, small quiz at the end. What would be the length of a paper if it is folded for 50 times? Those of you know the answer, please don't put it. Those of you don't know, just give me some number on this. What would be the length of paper if it is folded for 50 times? Assuming theoretically it is possible. Somebody might say practically not possible, but theoretically it is possible. So what the video is trying to tell, that a small piece of paper which you have, if you fold it 50 times, you can reach the moon and come back. So I always joke with people that if you have to take a loved one to the moon and back, you just need a piece of paper on the lighter side. These are some of the contact details which we have for us to come back offline and discuss with us. We have also given the feedback link. You can enter your details here if you want to stay in touch with us and keep receiving updates from us. And we will try our best to answer questions. We can start the Q&A. I try to leave enough time for Q&A today so that we can take questions. So I'll try to answer whatever questions are possible today. Just give me a second. What are the basic? So first question was, which index is better, BSE or NSE? NSE has 50 stocks, BSE has 30 stocks. In terms of top 30 or top 50 companies, both of them are similar. Once you have 30 big companies, the next 20 companies don't make a really big difference. Even if you see in the markets, typically the movement in both the indexes is quite similar. Second, what are some of the potential options if one wants to save only for a year? See, for such a short-term tenure, high liquidity option like a FD, fixed deposit, is always a better option, an easier option. Which are basic numbers we must see for buying some shares of some company, and what should be compared? See, regarding stocks, I was initially trying to thinking of putting it in the slides, but it's better to do another session because that requires far more in-depth. We have videos on YouTube. If you write Ashish Kila, you will find a video called Ranking of Business Models, which I had done a study in CFA, which is a very good video on how do you do ranking of business models. Rest, I'm happy to do more webinars as required for if we want specifically for equity companies. We basically do equity investing ourselves for our family office. We do it proprietary only. There's no intention to do public money. So we are happy to do more webinars. And for current people who want some more investing knowledge about which companies to buy, just write Ashish Kila on YouTube and you will see a ranking of business models video. And my team will share more links to you also. This is freely available on YouTube and other sites. And I can do more webinar on this topic again. More questions. Which sectors are looking attractive in present scenario? So see, some sectors are always attractive. For example, FMCG sector. FMCG sector in terms of growth potential or working potential is something which is required every time. No, but just the sector shouldn't be attractive. The valuation should also be attractive. So when you look in terms of choosing the sector or the stock yourself, You should always look at whether the sector will exist for the long run, what will be the competitive dynamics and everything. You have a whole list of factors which one needs to look at. So coming back to the other questions, share good chemical companies with impeccable management, which are not based on international businesses. See, again, today's session will not be able to cover in detail in terms of which companies, in terms of chemical sector, which one should buy. But one can always touch base offline so that we can cover that. Certain good companies in chemicals are basically companies like PI Industries, or you have companies like Aarti Industries, or you companies have Navin Fluorine. These are some good companies, but these are not recommendations. One needs to study them further and delve deeper into them and at the right valuations. What are the main parameters to look for when investing in equity? Can we have a session on that, please? Yes, definitely we can have that. We can plan that later on once again. And as I said, you have CFA videos to look into that. During current disruptive times, one may get opportunities over the next 3 months. What should be the equity allocation percentage and how much cash? See, as I mentioned earlier also, that economy is going through tough times. It's difficult for us to time the economy or time the markets. Always understand that markets sometimes bottom before the economy rebounds. So 2008, when the economy is going through crisis, a lot of this economy came back before even could before the markets came back, before the economy could revive. So markets are always forward looking. So what we should do in terms of investment allocation is whatever money is truly 10 years surplus, that we should keep investing for the long run, rather than timing the market in the short run, saying that if the market is crashed, if the economy is crashed, should I time the market? What one can do more is, for example, if there is blood on the streets of markets have crashed, if you have some more money which you wanted to put, these are the times when things getting tougher, you can maybe increase allocation. But otherwise, there is no other step required from our side. As I said, this is a passive way to create income. This is a no-nonsense approach to make money. You're not here trying to make money by timing the market. What you're trying to do here is trying to make money by a systematic, methodical approach of long-term compounding. So best way is to keep doing an SIP of funds which are more than 10 years. So 2008, top, if you had put money in mutual funds, in 2009, you were definitely down 30, 40, 50, 60%. But within a span of 5 years, within a span of 6 years, you were back making money on your initial investment, which was put in 2008. What SIP helps you is do a dollar cost averaging. Because you're putting money every month, automatically you are averaging your money as the markets go down or up. Specific to Bajaj Finance, I continue to have high conviction. Your views, we can take it offline. General view is, see, banks and NBFCs is a sector which has problems every few years. Why? Because some of the banks sometimes go aggressively lending and the money doesn't come back. It is a leveraged business. So even if you do wrong lending for say 5% of your loan book, your 5-10% equity can get wiped off. And if you have 10% equity and 10 times leverage, you are out of the business. But see, when you're asking for stock specific view, you have valuation and other things which come into play. I'm just giving the brief overlay and brief framework for it, that you should stick to the leaders in the segment which will benefit from this crisis. When this crisis ends, you will have a lot of NBFCs and smaller banks which will lose deposits, which will lose business, and people will move to the bigger banks. So the bigger banks or the bigger, larger NBFCs will benefit out of it. Stock specific view, I can share offline again with that. How much in debt and equity, how to rebalance it. As I mentioned, the focus here was on investing in equity. So here, in terms of how to rebalance, I would say, whatever money you require for fixed income, please don't put in equities. So liquidity separately, current liquidity, bank FDs and other places. Then in the coming 5-7 years, what require fixed expenses for the coming 5 years, you should put in FDs and other places, fixed income places. Money which you require post 10 years or surplus money should go in equities. So this ratio will be different for different people. For a person who's starting, he may not have too much surplus money. It doesn't matter. Even 5,000 rupees a month or 1,000 rupees a month, you have to start this habit of building wealth. You have to start this habit of doing wealth. Is it right time to invest in a current market scenario? As I mentioned, 2008 bottom, 2008 top. If you had invested, within 5 years, you're making money. So since this is a passive way of income, most of us are busy in our businesses, most of us are busy in our professions. This is the way wherein most of us can benefit without taking undue risks. Here you're delegating this business to a mutual fund manager who will do it for you, or to an index. How does an index do it? When a business falls, it moves out of the index. So automatically the index rebalances it for you. So one doesn't need to rebalance himself. The index of the mutual fund will do it for you. So it's always the right time to invest in the market scenario. Please always put money which is long-term surplus. It is always the right time. Keep investing in an SIP in a gradual manner. Over a long-term period, you will make money. DCB Bank, you continue to hold conviction. We had presented on DCB Bank as a framework evaluation process of bank sectors. DCB Bank, along with other banks, have followed a lot. A lot of these banks are becoming attractive. As I said, I will not be going detail into why I like or not like DCB Bank. If one wants to watch our views, one can go through the video which you shared on YouTube. You can write Ashish Kila DCB Bank and you can find the video to go through it. And again, I can take questions offline. But the bigger banks will benefit. Always remember, the bigger banks and NBFCs will benefit out of any crisis. There's a book by Nassim Taleb called Anti-Fragile, which mentions certain entities get stronger when crisis hits. So a DCB Bank is a small bank. It is robust. It may not fail. It is not fragile. So one entity is fragile like Yes Bank, which failed in this current crisis. DCB Bank would be a robust bank which will survive the crisis. And SGFC or Kotak is anti-fragile, which may benefit from this crisis. So this is how we need to think in terms of classifying sectors. For example, airlines. A SpiceJet may or may not survive the crisis, and Indigo should survive the crisis and benefit from it as it gains more market share. What price to buy is the second question. But in terms of theoretical framework to understand, this book is fantastic, Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb. At least read the summary on the internet. Your views on balanced and hybrid funds. So I always prefer, or we recommend always, that keep them separate. So you know your fixed income requirements, keep them separately. You know your surplus money, put it separately. When you're doing a mix of both the things, sometimes it's like mixing raisin with turds. If you make too much of a khichdi, it will become tough for you to understand that I didn't get my fixed income also and I didn't get my return also. So we don't prefer too much balance in hybrid funds. Saurav Mukherjee, high ROC, high earnings over a period of time, worth investing. Pricing does not matter. Your thoughts. So Saurav Mukherjee has a consistent compounder portfolio which has been doing well. Now the portfolio approach is basically the businesses which have been doing well over the last 10-15 years should continue to do well over the next 10-15 years. So that is something like what an index does. Index is saying the big companies that are doing well should continue to do well over the next 15 years. Now, what index does is rebalancing. If a company doesn't do well, index chucks them out of the business. Similarly, Saurav Mukherjee, if it's doing a similar approach, a business which doesn't doing well, does he remove them properly? How is his exit strategy? That one needs to think of. The philosophy to buy great businesses is good, but to say that any valuation, that in certain businesses is true. So certain businesses like Asian Paints or Nestle, even it bought at expensive valuations, have made a lot of money. So you require a lot of fund manager specific knowledge to see which businesses are truly awesome, great businesses, where you can be lenient with valuations, and which businesses are good businesses, but you require a lot of comfort on valuations. So this statement may hold true for some very great businesses, that a valuation may not be as important when you look at long run, but for normal good businesses, this statement doesn't hold true. You have plenty of examples like Infosys or Eicher Motors or Maruti. Maruti has fallen 50% and Eicher Motors from 34,000 has come down to 12,000 in 2 years. So these were good companies, but at a certain price. Just let me give an example. This is something which I've covered in the CFA videos I put on YouTube. If a company like Eicher has 95% market share in the premium segment, and if the market is not growing at 12-15%, how can Eicher exceed the market? So growth rates in certain businesses sometimes don't look feasible at all. There's a valuation PPT which we done on Gillette. It's called Standard Valuation Matrix on YouTube. And it's on our blog also. It mentions that if Gillette has 60% market share in the country and people are not shaving twice in a day like Colgate, in fact growing beard, then how can you grow at 20% to justify the valuations? So the great business should also have headroom that it can grow at high value, at high rates. If it doesn't have headroom, then like a Gillette or Eicher, the growth rates have to fall down. Rest, you can watch the video and come back to me offline. Next question, I am doing SIP in buying equity directly. So buying equity directly means you have to choose the stocks yourself. When you have to choose the stocks yourself, that means I am considering you as a knowledgeable investor. You have the temperament, time, interest, and patience to do it. And it is not advised for people who are not giving enough time. See, doing investing directly, think of it as a proper profession that you need to give it a few hours a week at least. If you don't do it, don't do direct equity investing, because you will end up losing money, and then we will cut off from the equity markets. Most of the people I meet, I lost 90% in equity, I lost 30% equity, I will never invest in equity. That statement is consistent. I will never invest in equity, because they are doing it in the wrong manner. How would you evaluate folks offering PMS services? PMS services are an advanced form of investing, because minimum investment required is 25 lakhs. Now it has become 50 lakhs. So SEBI itself is increasing limits that retail investor doesn't come into this. Somebody who's investing 50 lakhs is a knowledgeable investor and should be very well aware that these kind of instruments don't have the same level of regulatory insight which a mutual fund faces. Now, what edge do they have? A PMS? A PMS manager has far more flexibility in terms of loading up. For example, a mutual fund may not buy 20% of a company, but a PMS manager can buy 20% of a company also. But similarly, the risks are very high. So we always suggest PMS are for advanced practitioners. PMS are for people who really understand the risks, and risk in PMS is definitely higher than a mutual fund. Suggestion for top 2 sector post-COVID situation. So telecom sector is a sector which will continue to do well. Again, valuations need to be kept in mind. See, as I'm saying, when we are taking sectors, we need to think in terms of sectors which will do well, which will survive with competitive intensity. For example, airlines for a good amount of time, or telecom for a good amount of time, business growth is humongous. From having no mobiles to having 100 crore mobiles in the country, growth has been humongous, but people didn't make money in telecom. So just not growth, competitive intensity, longevity of business, durability of business, regulatory forbearance, regulatory intervention, so many factors need to be seen. The stock market grew 317 times. What do you think it will reach in the next 30, 40 years? So you're not betting on the stock market, you're betting on the top 50 companies of the country. Now think in terms of demographic profile in the country. We are one of the youngest population in the world, and our GDP is poised to grow among the top 3, top 5 companies in the coming times, and maybe even exceed them. When you have such a young population ready to grow and work hard and create startups and create enterprises, look at recently Zomato, Policybazaar, Udaan. The Silicon Valley is going to happen in India also. We will have such kind of innovation and things already happening and will happen. So Indian economy is where one needs to be in the next 30 years, next 50 years, wherein the growth will happen. And one should not be disappointed by buying the top companies which benefit from the Indian economy growing. Look at all the foreign companies. A lot of their businesses are now dependent on India. So we being in India are in the sweet spot. Like Buffett says, I was lucky being born in US in the 20th century. We are being lucky born in the 21st century here. Value emerging in small micro cap, does it not seem intuitive enough? Think stabilize, it should go up the most? Definitely. So as I'm saying, small cap, micro cap, mid cap funds, if one can do timing at their end, I think banking stocks have fallen a lot. Maybe should I invest in banking fund? Then I need to exit. So they are not wrong, but then you need to keep in mind that the small cap fund, for example, Vineet Bhamre, DSP, Kotak, BlackRock, when the funds were at its peak highest 2 years back, 2017, the fund has fallen 60% from there. Now, if you can keep in mind that I will take this exit because small cap return will be like this, and or if I divide my portfolio, some small caps, some mid cap, and this multi-cap is an easier approach. Multi-cap, you're already allowing the fund manager saying, wherever you find opportunity, invest it on my behalf, be it small cap, be it mid cap, be it large cap. When you're saying micro cap or small cap, you are tying the fund manager's hands, saying that you need to invest in these stocks only, even if they are expensive. And if you don't move your money out time to time, you may lose return, or if you don't keep your allocation lesser, you may, because in an overall portfolio, having only small cap fund will not make sense. So either you will have a mix of small cap, mid cap, large cap, or you need to keep timing. The better approach is stick to multi-cap funds, easier, consistent return, and fund managers the ability to switch. Top three equity advisory companies. So people who are looking to invest directly in equities, what equity advisory does is give you the list of recommended stocks and a model portfolio. One needs to read up on that, one needs to follow those companies and then invest and replicate that portfolio. That is an effort required at your end. Even if it is not an effort to study, but an effort to read up and redeploy the model portfolio. But please understand, these are managed by individuals. They are not mutual funds, like people who are managing as a process, who are managing as a long-term journey, who are managing and whose regulatory SEBI forbearance is very high. So mutual funds are very strictly regulated by SEBI. So first preference for an emerging upcoming investor should be mutual funds. Equity advisory PMSs are for more sophisticated or more involved set of equity investors. Which are company stock one should buy and now. As I said, stock recommendations will not be the great part of the platform today. Today was to bring you introduction to equity. I would suggest go through the videos which you shared on YouTube and blog and website, and then we can discuss offline on what stocks to buy. Why would you think not in terms of starting a PMS? You seem good to handle public money. Thank you so much for your insights. We will certainly keep that feedback in mind. Do you have any free courses where we can register to hear your markets? On our website and blog, the details which we shared, we have all these things. I'm again sharing this detail here with you. These are my details mentioned of the blog and the website and all the details for those of you who want to pursue this, pursue us, follow us. Opinion Zerodha broker. So Zerodha is doing again a great job in terms of scaling up really and having zero cost brokerage and very negligible cost. But you keep hearing of outages and disruptions in the service. So sometimes when you want to do a transaction, the service may be down. Now, if somebody who is doing long-term investing, maybe saving those 5-10 bips of trading costs may not matter much. So for those people, I would recommend to stick with the bigger banks. Even if they charge you 10, 20, 25 basis points more, there is no risk at all. Zerodha would be considered with people who are more into trading or more into regular trading and buying and selling, because their trading costs matter a lot. Otherwise, for people like us who do long-term investing for mutual funds or SIPs, should stick to the bigger banks, their brokerage houses. For short period up to 1 year or so, aren't liquid funds better than FDR? See, liquid funds, again, I'll not go into detail, but briefly, if you see in the last 1-2 years also, a lot of liquid funds have also lost money for a lot of investors by sometimes taking undue risks in credit papers and otherwise. So if the fund is only investing in government bonds or securities, then I'm happy to invest in a liquid fund or debt fund if it is only investing in sovereign securities. But if it is investing in AAA, AA, single A paper, then you're running a risk like a bank of lending to a corporate who may default. Recently also Franklin Templeton had issues. You had issues after you had issues after DHFL failed. Is services of Kotak Securities good for long run? Kotak, as I said, is a great bank. It is anti-fragile. So particularly services of Kotak Securities, HG Securities, I don't want to compare, but it will at least survive. There will not be issues in terms of bank going bust or closed. What about PMS? I just covered it earlier. I can cover it later offline if somebody has missed it. What are suggestions about small cap and mid cap which are in the red since long? See, if you have bought stocks which you're not aware in terms of why you bought them, or if you bought on somebody's recommendation and he's not guiding you anymore, I would suggest it's better to switch the portfolio into mutual funds or indexing, because gradually you'll start making money. Otherwise, if you keep averaging stocks which you don't know about, see any business, for example, Yes Bank, a lot of my friends used to keep asking me why I'm not buying Yes Bank, it has become so cheap. And I always mention, something which I can't value, there is no price to it. If I don't know whether the bank will survive or not, if I don't know what is the book value of a bank after adjusting for losses, what price should I give it? 100, 50, 30, it was cheap at all levels. So then there is no point of buying such a stock. Similarly, your mid-cap, small-cap stocks, if you can't value them, there is no way of putting a price to it. Please exit, move to index funds or mutual funds. Direct equity investing is recommended for sophisticated or serious set of investors. What about PMS? Best guy institute to learn equity trading from India. Equity trading, I don't have ready answers with you because I'm not doing much. Maybe I'll try to find out and give you answers. Ashish Franklin closed a few debit funds. What a risk associated liquidity crunch happened to any fund? This is an eye-opener which has happened for all funds. RBI has stepped in a lot. So liquidity lines have been opened up to prevent systemic crisis. This is again eye-opening experience for everybody, that please don't invest. So when you're, Nassim Taleb says, so Nassim Taleb is a wonderful guy to follow in terms of risk management. He says, don't try to maximize medium risk. When you say medium risk, if you're investing in debt or fixed income, why are you going after that extra 1%? You are investing in debt for liquidity, for safety of capital. So when you're investing for that approach in debt, don't go for extra 0.5% in PMC bank or extra 1% in a smaller private bank. Similarly, in liquid funds or debt funds, stick to funds. For example, overnight funds is a category of funds of SBI, ICICI, HDFC, which invest in only government securities. Stick to those funds if you have to invest in debt funds, or stick to a bank FD. And HDFC Kotak or SBI bank FD is not going anywhere. It may give you lesser returns, but it will give you the money when you require it. Unlike a PMC bank, unlike a Yes Bank, unlike a Franklin debt fund, which will stop giving liquidity when you require it. Future of debt funds seem to be bleak. I think future debt funds, they will be reset, which will happen. The reset which will happen will be, people will start focusing more on funds which stick to government bonds and government securities. See, please understand, when a debt fund is lending to our money from corporates, then why is it doing it? If it is only relying on credit rating, you know how well in the country credit ratings default. So then there is no business which a debt fund should have, lending on the basis of credit ratings to corporates and take undue additional risk for investors for a few basis points extra. Please avoid. Do India laws allow Indians to trade derivatives in US? Indians are allowed to invest. You can check with HDFC and Kotak, which allow people to invest outside. What is the right time to invest in equity and good stock? As I mentioned earlier, it's always the right time to invest in equity. If you are putting money which is truly for long run, for 10 years, please keep investing through indexing or through active mutual funds. If you have less time, indexing. If you have more time, choose the mutual fund the way I told you. Don't go with my recommendations. You have to choose. If you don't have time to choose, stick to indexing. Is there risk in equity funds like what happened in Franklin debt funds? See, risk in equity funds, you will have Reliance Power, you have other companies going bust. They will go out of the index and new companies will come in. So equity fund, index fund will keep rebalancing over the long period of time, taking only the strongest of 50 companies out there. So over a long period of time, if Indian GDP has to grow, Indian GDP will grow if the top companies in India grow. If top companies in India grow, GDP grows, then the index, which is representative of these companies, will also keep growing. Is there risk in equity funds? You think Franklin AMC will chip its nickels to compensate? So this was a precedent started by HDFC AMC to bear the losses of investors. Now this was quite radical. Otherwise, in a bank, the risk of bad lending falls on the bank. In an AMC, the risk of bad lending falls on the investors. All the more reason to not go into AMCs which invest into AAA and AA and single A papers. Don't buy those schemes, because here, then you are wishing that like in HDFC AMC, a Franklin also steps up to take the losses. It may or may not, because there is no rule which says AMC to bear the losses. HDFC did from its own volition, voluntarily, and it is not a precedent which everybody else will follow. So I'm not sure whether Franklin will come and compensate. And please understand, tomorrow the losses could be so high that even in AMC could not. Look at what happened with Yes Bank. When you're lending money for 10%, 12%, 15%, you can't cover the cost of 100 rupees going wrong in the lending. You will lose that entire set of money. Any other questions? Please keep asking, and we are about to end the time. So organizers, please, whatever feedback or thing if you have to close.
Today we have a very good, knowledgeable and interactive session taken by CA Ashish Kilaji. Now I would request our president of CA Forum, CA Manoj Patwari ji, to address and thank Ashish Kila ji.
Thank you. I thank Sri Ashish Kila for his excellent and precise and knowledgeable presentation and seminar. And I also thank all the participants of the webinar who took out time, and I hope they really enjoyed it. Ashish is a real family friend, son of my close friend, Sri R.A. Kila Sahab. It is also a great pleasure that in its second webinar itself, we have achieved registrations of over 300. And for this, I would really like to thank the whole team of the CA Forum also, who are working very hard on this. I once again thank Sri Ashish Kila, and we would like him to do more webinars in future, for which we would be interacting with him, or our team would be interacting with him. Thank you everyone once again.
Thank you so much, and please reach out for offline for any questions or answers which you have. Thank you so much, Manoj Patwari ji. Thank you so much, CA Forum. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Ashish ji.